Hey, what's up, everybody? It's been a long time coming. I think it's been about 6 or 7 months since we've had a podcast, but the West Coast Preps podcast is back and here and better than ever. I am Chris Jackson, joined here by two newcomers, Dylan and Jack.
Yep. I'm
You guys have
Dylan. I'm Dylan.
yeah,
What's
anything
up,
else?
guys? My name's Jack Loder. I'm excited to be a part of the team and get my legs under me at the pod. I just graduated from Arizona State this past year, and I've been working for West Coast Preps for about a month now, and I've loved my time on the sideline. So I can't wait to get some takes off here and really sum up what we've been seeing across the region here in the early going of the season.
Yes, sir. I'm excited too, Jack. I've been working at West Coast Preps for about a month as well. I graduated from his rival school at the University of Arizona. So we definitely have that friendly rivalry going, a lot of fun there. But yeah, we know our sports and we are ready to get right into it. We got a lot of good stuff coming at you guys. So stay tuned.
Yeah, there's been a lot of football already 2 weeks into the Bay Area season because there are some schools in the Sac Joaquin section that started 2 weeks ago. Vacaville, big win. Vanden, big one. Rodriguez, a crazy comeback win. Dylan was at. From last week, pretty much the rest of the entire Bay Area, the NCS and CCS returned. Then this week, all Oakland teams returned to McClymonds against Bellarmine on the road. But guys, through 2 weeks, what are some of your biggest storylines and takeaways you guys are looking at just through 2 weeks of football?
Well, there's been some really good stuff going on. One takeaway that I have and I really believe is that Cheyenne Shariat at Lee High School in San Jose, that kid is going to be a superstar this season all year long. They won 28-0 their first game of the season, but he had three of those touchdowns. And man, he looked dynamic. It was the week of the running back. Bentley at Rodriguez High School, number 11. That kid is a stud too. He was a workhorse in that game. He was instrumental in that comeback. So I believe that it's going to be a year of the running backs. It's going to be a great season in that regard. And yeah, that's what it's looking like so far.
You highlight the running backs, Dylan. I'll highlight some quarterback play that I saw both firsthand and just in general in the region. I know we were at a lot of games this week, so pretty much all the great quarterback play that you heard about this week, we had boots on the ground. On Friday night, I saw Dominic Ingracia at San Marin really put together a number of surgical drives for the Mustangs, especially in that second half. He looked really comfortable after getting his legs under him, maybe shaking off some early season jitters. He's going to be a phenomenal quarterback. And then on the other side of the field was Sully Bailey for Acalanes, who also was making some prolific plays, especially in third and fourth down situations when the chips were on the table, if you will, for Acalanes. That's when they really started to move the ball. So some really good quarterback play in that D4 sec. And then we'd be remiss not to mention Luke Baker at San Ramon Valley, who might be the best quarterback in the entire region that we cover. Um, the kid needs offers. We talked about it last night, guys. Like this kid is a talent that should be getting looks at the next level for football, not just baseball. So I think fans and people who follow high school football in the Bay Area should be really excited about the level of quarterback play that they're going to see this season.
And I want to go back to running back play as well, Dylan. You've talked about you're the running back. Is it the best position group right now in Northern California?
Um,
Just because of what we've seen, Manteca week one, Bryson Davis over 300 yards, Asante Carter 6 touchdowns already at St. Mary's, Jackson Bell a prolific start at Liberty, a sophomore there, over 100 yards. There's been a lot of different running backs stepping up already, and we've seen it in every game. It seems like too. I know that there were some big run plays hit for. I know San Ramon Valley hit some run plays too. Obviously, Luke Baker kind of runs that show, but running back the best position you think maybe so far in the Bay Area?
Man, I love what I'm seeing. It used to be such a passing dynamic, system in high school sports, especially in football. But now we're seeing a bit of a shift. Like there's great quarterback play, don't get me wrong, but teams are starting to rely on the run game a lot more. And I think we're starting to see a lot of players really come out of their shell because running backs, it takes a lot. They get hit a lot. They're the ball carriers, they get hit a lot basically, and they're
Right.
running the ball a lot per game. So we're seeing the running backs really come out. They're proving themselves this year. And I know we're early in the year, but honestly, yes, from what I've seen, the highlight of like especially in the El Cerrito game, it was a 14-7 game, but two out of the three touchdowns scored were on running plays. You saw Micah Avery had a really long touchdown to start the game. we are just seeing some really, really, really dynamic running back play, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw off a couple of questions to both of you. Dylan, Amador Valley was a close loss to El Cerrito, but Amador Valley didn't have its projected starting quarterback Tristan Tia transfer from Granada, has to sit out.
Yeah.
What kind of a difference would he have made potentially in that game Friday? I know we can't really play the what if game, but what kind of difference could he have made against the stout El Cerrito defense? And what kind of impact do you think he's going to make to that offense and to that team when he does come back there midway through the season?
Yeah, he's a dynamic player. It's kind of hard to tell just because he hasn't played in that system yet with Danny Jones, but he's a great player. So is Aiden. They're both really good quarterbacks. I think Tristan's going to elevate that a little bit more because he's a very, good passer. So he's going to elevate that offense a little bit more because remember, another running back, Jake Goldworthy is a stud on that offense. He's the running back, right? So if you add Tia to that offense, you're going to get a dynamic passing offense as well. And I think it's just going to make Amador Valley such a more well-rounded team. And come second half of the season when Tia is able to play, I think you're going to see a different Amador Valley offense really show up.
Jack, you've seen San Marin, a team that's gotten close to Marin Catholic the last couple years, but hasn't quite taken them a big first one. You've seen Tamalpais, a rising program under Lamone. How do those two programs stack up in Marin County?
I think I can confidently say those are number 2 and 3 in Marin County, in that order. San Marin's the second best team in the county. And Tam probably headlines that next tier that often features Tam, Redwood. And, historically it's been Terra Linda, not this year. It's really kind of Tam and Redwood alone in that. Maybe San Rafael knocking at that door. But in terms of the distance between Marin Catholic and San Marin, I think it's a lot shorter this year than it has been in other years. And maybe I know last year was a year that a lot of people foresaw maybe that upset coming, that first Marin Catholic loss within the county and forever. Didn't happen last year. That game kind of got away from San Marin. I think it's a game that both teams have circled on their calendar. So it's not like the Mustangs are going to be able to sneak up on MC. MC knows how good they are up there. And it's going to be a game both teams are ready for. That's a blockbuster. I wouldn't put my chips on the table and say San Marin is definitely going to beat MC, but I think it's going to be a good game. And then Tam is not far, but substantially and obviously at a level below San Marin. If for no other reason, it's just depth and numbers too. Like we saw on Friday night, San Marin lost Charlie Singleton in the first quarter. He sprained his ankle. Jonah Lozano filled in seamlessly and carried the ball for San Marin all night. So I think that's a big difference in that league, in that county, is that MC and San Marin are able to go 2 and 3 deep at a lot of positions, and other teams are, one injury away from being in real trouble at a lot of positions.
Another team I want to ask for is week 1. Greg was their Archbishop Reardon. I know we've talked about them in the preseason a lot, but that kind of statement they made, a lot of transfers in, a lot of stars coming back at here. Ravapati, I know you've talked to him before, Dylan, but Reardon, a statement, 33 points up, 33-3 on Sacred Heart Prep at halftime against a team that running clocked it last year. Sacred Heart Prep destroyed Reardon when I was there last year on a Saturday afternoon. Where's Reardon going to be in the WCAL? Where are they going to be in NorCal in the Bay Area when it's all said and done?
We have turntables. I will say that. Reardon is not what they were, and Ravapati is turning that program around. And we talked about this, Chris. They're going to be a powerhouse team in a couple seasons. What Adir is doing there, people want to play for him. They want to play at that school. And he's just brought a new energy to that team, and they're looking like a different program. They came out, they totally look different than they did a year ago against this team. They won the game. They're 1-0. They have high momentum going the rest of the way now, and I think that they can keep it up. So I do believe that they deserve more respect on their name. I think that they're going to be a force the rest of the way, and I think that any team that plays them should see that game and think, well, we're going to have a hard game against these guys because these guys are here to stay, and they're on the come up. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect segue into looking ahead to this week because Reardon looks to be a top contender in the WCAL, but ahead of them is Powerhouse Sarah under Patrick Walsh. Another big one last week, 21-14 over Folsom. Sarah's got the last 2 open division bids from NorCal to go to state. Last year beat Halo, beat Folsom, had all those big wins. Now Sarah's got De La Salle again. De La Salle this time going to San Mateo for a Saturday afternoon game. Dylan, what are some of the things you're looking at for that big time matchup between NorCal's top two programs?
Well, I'm looking at the quarterback play first and foremost. You got two top quarterbacks. You got Toa Fave from De La Salle and Maliwaki Smith at Sarah. Both quarterbacks are good. Both quarterbacks are solid. They're stout. And then the weapons they have around them. You got Jabari Mann. You got guys like that. You just have a really good team. Both teams have starter potential all through the roster. And I think that you're going to see just some clean, it's going to be a disciplined game, a clean game. It's going to be a dynamic game in the sense you're going to see a lot of offense, a good defensive game as well. And I think that this is the type of game that should be like the model game for what high school football is all about. You got, it's a high school, they're two high school teams, but the way that the players conduct themselves, the way that they play, it's going to be a great game. I'm excited for it. I've had that game circled and checkmarked ever since I found out I was going to that game. So I'm just excited to see a great game. I'm excited to see two coaches battle it out. I'm excited to see two quarterbacks battle it out. And overall, I'm just stoked for a great game. That's going to be, in my opinion, the game of the week, possibly a game of the season if it all works out the way I think it's going to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should take into account some intangibles in this game too. Um, Rightfully so. It's kind of like an Alabama Georgia situation. I'd liken it this year in the fact that De La Salle is a traditional Alabama Nick Saban powerhouse, but in the last couple seasons, it's objectively been Sarah that's kind of ruled the region. So we've crowned Sarah and anointed them, and as we should based on the results. But I think De La Salle is still a sleeping giant with all that history and all that pride they play with. I think a big factor in this game, honestly, could be that drive and how deep and personal De La Salle kind of takes this perceived slight, right? Since Dylan and I were alive, Chris, since you're not that much older than us, I should say, since you were alive too, De La Salle's been the cream of the crop in the Bay Area, and the fact that that's not exactly the case, in the early years of this decade, it's something they should take personally. So I look for a bit of a maybe a chippy battle in San Mateo on Saturday. And for De La Salle, especially after a pretty substantial loss to Southern California foe, Orange Lutheran last week, they don't want to start 0-2. That's pretty foreign to them. So it's no matter how many blockbuster games you put in your schedule, no one wants to do that. So I think look for De La Salle to fight to the death in this one.
What are some other big games you both are looking at going into this weekend across the Bay Area and Northern California?
Well, I will be at James Logan I will be at Cal at James Logan on Friday. That should be a good game. Two teams that are matched up very well all across the board. So that should be a pretty close battle. There's some Jack. What games are you going to be at this weekend that we can look forward to?
Friday night, I'm going to Windsor for Windsor and Escalon. That's a pretty big one. A lot of intersection play there. Windsor's been a huge piece in that NBL. They added a lot. They lost some in the. I almost said transfer portal. That's what I get for transitioning from college to high school. It may as well be the transfer portal. Sometimes the ease you see some kids jumping around programs, but they added a ton too. So I'm excited to see Windsor. Super excited to see St. Vincent de Paul on Saturday. It's a practice I was at last week and a program that's on the way smaller side in terms of school size, but one that's seen a ton of success in recent years. And what Coach Trent Herzog does for that program is really special out there. And also the Sacred Heart Bowl is an intriguing one to me between Prep and Cathedral. WCal matchup there. I think that on paper, Sacred Heart Prep, Chris, you can object if you'd like, but I think on paper, Sacred Heart Prep is the better team. But Cathedral has a lot of talent at a lot of different positions, and I think they're a well-coached group that takes a lot of pride in that game. So it's another one that intangibles could play a factor in. So those are a few that I have my eye on this week.
Yeah, and another game I actually forgot to say was Campo and Amador Valley. That's going to be a great one because Campo had that statement against Vanden, and Amador Valley is coming off of a close loss. So I think those two teams are both having a lot to play for. Campo trying to prove that they deserve to be, still on top, and Amador coming out to prove that they should not be losing games. So I think that's going to be a great game. McClymonds and Bellarmine's also a great one. It's McClymonds' opening game. So it's going to be a great game to see how they perceive themselves in the first game of the season. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and that Bellarmine McClymonds game, Dylan, I know you previewed that going up on the website, but what are some things you're looking for? That was a game that came down to the wire last year. McClymonds goes up, Bellarmine comes back, but McClymonds gets that overtime win. Who are some guys to watch for, and how is that matchup shaking out on paper for McClymonds this season over to Bellarmine's second game?
Well, Bellarmine's got a great defense. They got a linebacking core that's got Ben Colton, Reese McIver on it. But then you cannot forget the McClymonds has Tajir Golden. He's a great player. He's an athlete. He's a stud. So the offense for McClymonds is going to be really tough to stop. But Bellarmine's defense is also really hard to play against. So it's going to be one of those games that I'd say it's going to either be a game that comes down to whoever has the ball last, or it's going to come down to whoever can play better defense. So, I mean, Parker Thread on the offense too is a good quarterback on Bellarmine. So Bellarmine's offense is good too. So, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff to watch in that game. Just a lot of great talent on both sides of the ball for both teams. So that game is honestly going to be that game's a sleeper game in my opinion. It's a game that's not talked about enough, but is going to be a game that might end up being one of the better games of the weekend.
And then Windsor against Escalon. Jack, that's a huge one of a Sac Joaquin section power going to sort of a newly minted North Coast top dog. Windsor's had a lot of wins the last 2 years, won league, won an NCS championship 2 years ago. But Escalon comes in defending state champs in a program with a lot of tradition and a lot of history, and they've had some close wins these first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm stoked to see. Like I said, it's an inter section matchup. Those are always really exciting at this time of year when you see teams who wouldn't have any chance to play each other in the postseason until that Northern California Championship Bowl game. So it's really a comparison, a litmus test almost of two different styles of football. But Windsor's a team that, like I said, competes well in the NBL. A lot of numbers, a big school, and Escalon comes in with that state championship pedigree. So I'm looking for Windsor to establish the run, try to control the clock, and really take possession time away from Escalon, who can make things happen in a hurry.
Escalon's got that special teams thing too. Their kicker last year, Talon Ryder, hits a game-winning field goal, beats Buchanan. And Jack, I think you and I especially saw the forefront, the epitome of how important special teams are, right? St. Mary's against Central Catholic, blocked extra point, blocked punt, missed 2-point try, kind of cost Central Catholic in a lot of ways. Instead of it being a 1-score game after Asante Carter scores near the end, it's a 2-score game. And that's it. And you saw that in San Marin as well. Importance of special teams, guys.
Yeah.
That may be understated, especially at this level.
It was a huge contrast in special teams in Novato this past week with San Marin and Acalanes. You had Lars Rao, who made a 41-yarder, made a 32-yarder, and was perfect on his extra points. And Acalanes missed an extra point. I don't know the kicker's name. Also, wouldn't want to put him on blast here anyway. But they missed an extra point. They had to go for 2 at one point. Didn't get it, and then had a few punts that were just shanked out of bounds. It just really flipped the field for San Marin and gave Ingracia and that offense a short field, which is not something. It's not a unit that you want to help out too much. So special teams, and any coach you talk to will harp on it until they lose their voice. It's games are won and lost on those transitionary plays, and it was illustrated at San Marin on Friday night.
Yeah, I think special teams is definitely something that's overlooked a lot in high school because it's special teams and it's on. But that being said, like Jack said, it's important to have good special teamers. You see going back to the Lee and Lincoln game. There's a couple times when the punter on Lincoln had a shorter punt than he probably should have, gave Lee good field position, and they were able to score a touchdown. So I think that if you are able to have a good punter and kicker and all that, that can really be the difference between a win or a loss, because the kicker can come out there and make a key field goal to give you a lead. So I definitely think special teams in high school is something that should be more focused on a bit, and just appreciated more for sure.
And right before we get to against the spread, a new topic we got coming up where we're going to make lines and everything else for some of the big matchups. Each of your guys' top 2 most underrated players you've seen through 2 weeks so far.
Well, I have to say Cheyenne Charrier won because he is a guy, he hasn't really gotten offers yet, but yet he ran for over 1,000 yards last season. And he had over 130 yards this first game, 3 touchdowns, and the kid doesn't have any offers yet. He's my number one. He's a kid that people really need to look at and think that this kid is, he's special. And then honestly, my other one is Micah Avery. He's a transfer from Clayton. He went to El Cerrito, you know, and he's his first game ever at El Cerrito. He scores a long touchdown and is one of the best players on the field. So if that and it's a new system. So if that doesn't tell you how good of a player he is, I don't know what does. So those are my two biggest underrated players right now. We'll see what happens with them as the season goes on.
I'm going to highlight a receiver at Tamalpais. This is the game I was at on Saturday, which was Tam and O'Dowd. Tam got the win. When you think of this team on offense, you think of weapons like Jake Son at running back, Lachlan Henley, and the tight end, kind of receiver, tight end hybrid spot. But it was Andrew Gordon who was making plays on 3rd and 4th down, scored 2 touchdowns. And he was Braden Young's real safety valve turned into downfield threat. So he's a guy that Lamont said after the game is not a guy that's going to be super sought after, super focused on, if you will, by opposing defenses, but he can cut you down. And then I'll go back to the San Marin Akalani's game and highlight Jonah Lozano. Again, I mentioned him earlier in the show here. Charlie Singleton went down, and I was wondering on the sideline whether or not Dominic DeMary was going to have to pivot to a more pass heavy, but they stayed the course, stuck with Jonah Lozano on the ground. He carried, I believe I had it 14 times for around 85 yards, including a touchdown and some really key carries towards the end of the game when San Marin needed to chew the clock. He gets the yardage, gets the first down that essentially ended the game, and stays in bounds the whole way. So poise and the ability to make plays when your name is called upon. So Jonah Lozano and Andrew Gordon, a couple Marin guys.
Let me highlight a couple of guys out of the Valley before we move on. I saw a few. Was Ricky Cole, interim quarterback. Varsity quarterback, started last year, goes back down to JV, comes back, and just dual threat epitome right there. He's got nothing but touchdowns to the first 2 weeks, a couple of big touchdown runs and throws last week. Asante Carter, a running back at St. Mary's. Right, we mentioned his name earlier, the running backs in NorCal, but it just seems like there's a lot that are still waiting on that opportunity, and he is that kid. Hearing from D1 schools, that opportunity's not here, but he's got 6 touchdowns through 2 games against really good teams too. He's not doing 6 touchdowns against lesser competitions and against Central Catholic and then a Clovis West team that's got 3 D1 commits and definitely counting with the guys on that roster. Him and then Trace Hernandez at Central Catholic, a receiver that I would guarantee probably hits 20 plus miles per hour with how fast he is and takes the top off defenses. Those would, I think you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. Those Cheyenne Chariot, I remember seeing him 2 years ago, Dylan, and he popped off the page. But now against the spread, a new thing we're going to be doing every week. We have our game predictions on the website, and now we have against the spread. We are not Vegas odds makers, people, but heck, we might be.
Nor do we condone the wagering on high school football games. This is a hypothetical and something that simply illustrates the margins between 2 teams coming up.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to have a little bit more fun at a high school game and you need some skin on the game, why not test your luck? But no, I'm just kidding. But we got some good games for spreads this week, so it should. Yep.
Here we go. First one, Akalani's hosting San Ramon Valley. Akalani's coming off a season opening loss to San Marin. San Ramon Valley crushed State Ignatius 42-14. The line set at San Ramon Valley minus 15.5.
Ooh, give me Acalanes with the points.
I'm taking San Ramon Valley, but not by 15.5. I mean, come on, look. Acalanes is a great program. This is going to be a great game, regardless of who is winning or losing. But Luke Baker can't be stopped. Just like Jack said, he's one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the area. He can't be stopped. Now, it's not going to be a 15.5 point game. I'd say San Ramon Valley +7 or -7. They're going to cover the spread. But it's not going to be. They're not going to win by 15.5 points. Akalani is too good of a team.
I'd put it in the between 8 to 15 range. So I see like a 27-16. But this is a game where that line could be tricky because it could easily be a garbage time score by San Ramon Valley that makes it 33-16. Or on the other end, if you're on the hypothetically on the San Ramon Valley side of the spread. It's 33-14, and all of a sudden, with 18 seconds left, Paul Cooner has a 30-yard touchdown to kind of make it closer than it is. But I think generally speaking, that's not super far off, but I'd put it more in the 10 to 12 range, Chris.
And now Bellarmine against McClymonds. Bellarmine, defending NorCal champion. McClymonds gone to state plenty of times. Another defending NorCal champ. Last year, McClymonds won by 3. Season opener. Bellarmine coming off a 17-14 win over Menlo Atherton. This game and San Jose at San Jose City College. The line, Bellarmine -1.5.
Oh,
You know what?
Essentially a money line game.
I agree with that. And look, it's gonna be that game's gonna be close. Like I said, it's gonna be a great game. It has the potential to be game of the weekend. But Bellarmine had that first game win, and the momentum that they're riding is super high right now. McClymonds is still about to play their first game of the season. They're a good team, but they don't know what they have yet. So honestly, it might be more of like I'd say it could be more of like a 3 to 6 point spread. But I mean, it's going to be too close to call, but I think Bellarmine's going to take that one. It's going to be a close game, but Bellarmine's momentum is going to be on their side for this one.
Yeah, no big objections there. I know McClymonds comes in, plays a pretty physical defensive style of football, so Bellarmine's going to be in stark to that. So I would say if you think Bellarmine's going to win, obviously I would advise take the point. So I agree with the line. I think it's going to be right around there. Should be one of our circle games. I think Dylan, you and I both highlighted that one. It's going to be a great one.
Yeah.
The next one, Camp Lindo hosting Amador Valley. Just the fighting Kevin Macy's. Lose a lot. The way he talks to them before the year in an interview was kind of trying to sell Camp Lindo was going to be no good, right? That's what he's done for decades now as a coach. Camp Lindo, though, getting that statement win at Vanden. Amador Valley, meanwhile, a 1-score loss to a really good El Cerrito team that won NCS a year ago. The line for this game in Moraga is Camp Lindo -8.5.
You know, I'm not saying this to be a homer. I'm saying this in all seriousness because I do see it happening. I agree with that. Campo Lindo is a really versatile team. They're good at playing against teams whose defenses are absolutely like dynamic, hard to play against. But they also have a good enough offense with Max Robeson at quarterback, Tim Doherty and Scott Lyon at receiver. They have a good offense to where they can honestly keep up with anybody. Amador Valley's defense is great, but I think Campo's offense is either as good, if not maybe a little bit better. And then Amador's offense, I mean, yes, you have Foley, but you also have the uncertainty with Tia, and there's just a lot going on there with offensively. So I think Campo's going to take this one, and I do agree with the spread.
Campo, it's interesting, Chris. You touched on what Macy kind of his self-deprecating preseason strategy gives you a little bit of a clouded vision of what the Cougars might be, especially in these early going games. I also think this is a really good line. I got to tip my cap to you because that's around where I would have put it too. And you know a lot more about the region than I do at this point. So I wouldn't be super confident picking either side, but Campo, who's hosting the game again?
Camp Lindo.
Campo Lindo, then roll with them to cover that, win by a couple scores.
In another huge game, kind of different sections, but they played each other before. Cardinal Newman hosting Vacaville and Santa Rosa on Friday evening. Cardinal Newman 1-0, been to a lot of NCS championships, beat Casa Grande 27-13. Vacaville, though, a dominant 2-0. And last year, Vacaville won this game 14-7 in Vacaville. The line for this year's game in Santa Rosa is Vacaville -6.5.
I agree with that, and we have our reasons for that. That's all I'm going to say.
I agree with that. I think it's a big road dog favorite line, or not road dog, road favorite line. But I would take Vacaville in that just because of what they've shown us in the first 2 weeks. You know, they had a week 0 pounding of Davis. This past week they pounded, I think it was Sheldon, if I'm not mistaken. Brody Fortunati is a really, really polished product at quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the greater Bay Area. I think a senior, the Air Force commit. They've got a great run game with Christian Diosdado. And then on that defense that suffocated Davis in the game I was at the first week of football. Noah Siaosi is a phenomenal player. So very few holes on Vacaville's roster up and down. Cardinal Newman also obviously a pretty talented roster. They're dealing with their own tumultuous early season stuff on and off the field. I just don't think the Cardinals have the gumption, the wherewithal at this point in the season to hang with Vacaville. I think the gap between these two teams is illustrated on Friday night, and a pretty big win for the visiting Vacaville Bulldogs.
The next one, where it's another Sac Joaquin section foe, this time hosting a North Coast section team. Granite Bay out of the loaded Sierra Foothill League hosting Pittsburgh. Granite Bay, for people that don't know, great league, great team. They've got a junior Cal committed running back, Carter Jackson. They've got a Washington State committed linebacker, Frank Cusano. They've got a great sophomore running back, Isaiah Ine, who's also got over 100 yards through 2 games, and he leads the team in tackles. But Pittsburgh, new era, but it seems like the same results already. 49-13 rout of Sacred Heart Cathedral in week 1. Marley Alcantara had a big game at quarterback. Some 3 and 4 stars on that defense. Granite Bay, though, 1-1. That loss to Manteca, always a strong program. Went to a NorCal championship last year, and Granite Bay's also beat a top 10, top 15 team in the Sacramento region at Elk Grove. And the line for this one in Granite Bay is Pittsburgh -9.5.
Oh, give me Granite Bay. Give me Granite Bay to cover that at home. I think Pitt is nasty. Don't get me wrong. Up and down, they play physical football. They play fast football. But Granite Bay has the great depth. Those guys you mentioned, Carter Jackson can run the heck out of the football. I don't know how profane we can get on the podcast, so I'll stick with heck. But that's a guy who is going to match that physicality at the point of contact at the first and second levels of the defense. So I think Granite Bay with a home crowd should be an awesome atmosphere. Are you going to that one, Chris?
Greg will be at that game.
Greg will be at that one. All right. Yeah. So I'm excited to see that one play out. I think 8.5 is way too many, though. I think Granite Bay covers it. I think this is a 1-score game.
I'd say Pitt. I mean, I'd say it's going to be a closer game than that. I'd say, give me Pitt by maybe 6 or 7. But I mean, Pitt is Pitt. They got Monty Beam, they got Marley Alcantara, and like Jack said, they're a physical team, and physicality wins out in high school. I think so. I think Pitt's going to win this game. Granite Bay is a great team, but Pittsburgh is scrappy. They're gritty. They have everything that you want out of a high school team, and they always seem to compete every year, no matter what team that they play. Even if they don't win, they're competitive every season, and they showed out the first game, proving that they're a competitive team. So I'm taking Pitt by 6 or 7.
This one between two NCS foes. Heritage 1-0 hosting an 0-1 Granada team. Heritage, an overtime win at Foothill. Granada, really talented team, but got absolutely destroyed by Monte Vista. Draw passes, a lot of other things plagued it in that game. Heritage dominated this matchup last year. Granada's not lacking in talent, but Heritage won this game 54-14 last year. This game's in Brentwood Friday night, and the line is Heritage -13.5.
That one's tough for me. I will agree with the line just because week 1 doesn't lie all the time in terms of what we saw. But I have a really hard time buying that Granada is really going to be this bad. I mean, they lost their first game of the season by that much, but they're Granada. They're going to come out with that chip on their shoulder, we're not losing again mentality, and they're going to come out and they're going to play hard. They're a talented team. They have the assets and the pieces and the players and the coaching staff. So Granada, I mean, I don't think they're going to win just for the purposes of what we saw, I don't think they're going to win this game. But heck, I'm going to lower the spread. Instead of saying 13, I'm going to say between 9 and 10.
So Granada spread is what you're saying.
Granada, I think, yeah, it's going to be a close game.
For people that don't know, there's some Division I talent in this game too. What Dylan's also referring to is Granada's got a 3-star quarterback. Quinn Boyd has a preferred walk-on offer from Western Michigan. He was an MVP at the Notre Dame camp, not this past one, but the summer prior in 2022. Heritage has Brooks Davis, second every year of football. He's committed to Montana, a 3-star as well. But now it's time for Jack to make his little decision.
I'm not going to lick the boots of my boss as much as Dylan just did and say Granada's going to cover this spread. I think Heritage blows it out of the water. I apologize, Chris, as a Granada alum, that might hurt a little bit.
Okay, I'm picking Heritage to beat the spread too.
Yeah, I think Heritage wins. This might be a 20-plus point game. The Division I talent you just mentioned for Heritage is a difference maker. Granada, I think, is treading water at best this year. So Heritage powers through. I could be wrong, and Granada covers it with some pride, but I think Heritage is head and shoulders above this team.
And I love Heritage's coach too. For people that haven't met him, Dave Fogelstrom's got that culture. He's built that thing back up. Last year, sent a couple of kids to Division I football. Devon Rivers at Fresno State, Jeremiah Ruffin once at UC Davis. He's pumping out kids there in East County now. He's got a great program. And now another one, some kind of rising programs. James Logan, a lot of history hosting Cal High out of another loaded league, the East Bay Mountain. James Logan 0-1, but a one-score loss to Mitty in the opener. Cal's 0-1, but also lost to a team from SoCal who is ranked ahead of Vacaville in the state rankings. So some good games coming up. And last year, Cal did throttle James Logan 31-7, but the difference for James Logan this year you could look at is Jonathan Kraft, definitely Division I talent at quarterback, transferred in from Valley Christian, and now he is James Logan's starter. And the line for this game is Cal -12.
I will be at this game, so I will be able to be the first to make the assessment of how of which team I believe to be better. But I mean, I think they'll win that game, but I do think, I mean, I agree with the spread because I mean, they got a new James Logan does have a new quarterback. So it's kind of hard to really tell, how that's going to fare out, through one game, but they also have a new quarterback, which means that the energy is different. They're going to bring a new energy, a new life. They lost this game by a lot last season. They're going to come out with their new quarterback and try to show that they have it this year. So while I do agree with the spread, because what we saw in the game last season, it wasn't super encouraging. I do think that this game is going to be a lot better than people think it's going to be. James Logan they got a talented team. Both teams are talented, don't get me wrong, but James Logan, getting that new quarterback's the heart and soul of the team. If you get that one player that's a difference maker, that brings that new energy and new life to the team, it's gonna make a world of a difference, I think.
Cal has though too is its quarterback is back also. Jaden Macedo started early on, got hurt, dual threat kid. He's back for Cal too. So that quarterback matchup, Dylan's going to be watching Friday night. It's definitely going to be electrifying.
Yeah, I pretty much concur. I think Cal covers, and the health is a paramount thing, but I think they are talented enough across the board to cover. I'm excited for Dylan's coverage of that game.
In a big night game in Carmichael, Jesuits' third ever home game under the lights because they don't have permanent lights. They play a lot of Saturday day games, but their first two games able to get the lights. Last week got that win over Bishop Manogue, 30-14, a team from Nevada. Hosting St. Ignatius, a team from the West Catholic Athletic League in San Francisco. Jesuits 1-0, talented, great quarterback in CJ Lee, a lot of athletes on the outside. But St. Ignatius, sure, 0-1, but that first loss to San Ramon Valley. Last year, Jesuit did win this game 17-7. And the line for Jesuit at home is Jesuit -6.5.
This game is may the most devout Jesuit school win, right? Say Jesuit, obviously Jesuit St. Ignatius, a Jesuit preparatory academy. Maybe the Pope should do the coin toss at this game.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. On the field, though, semantics aside, sorry, I need to try my hand and stand up one of these days, not during the podcast. Semantics aside, I think Jesuit is a better team, but St. Ignatius is also better than the week one performance they put out against a really tough San Ramon Valley team. So I think if I was a betting man, not that I am, I would say St. Ignatius comes up and covers against Jesuit, either wins by a couple points or gets within a score, within, even a field goal of this game. And it's a really hotly contested game. And like you said, a great atmosphere under the lights at Jesuit when they don't play a whole lot of night games out there. So SI bounces back. Brutal non-league start for the Wildcats with that schedule being San Ramon Valley and Jesuit. But I think they rise to the occasion, and if not win the game, at least are right there until the final whistle.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Both of these teams are super talented. They're both private schools, so they have the talent, the athleticism. SI coming out against a Luke Baker-led SRV team is kind of like it's almost unfair. It's really hard to judge them based off of that because SRV is a different animal this year. But, I mean, from what we saw week one from Jesuit, they seem like they're a good team this year, and they have a lot to prove, and they're going to show it. But I do think that the spread will be covered. It's going to be a close game. Like Jack said, both teams have it. They have good players on both sides of the ball, each of them. So it's going to be another great game. So
We got NCS against CCS coming up here in Brentwood. Liberty is hosting Los Gatos. Liberty 1-0, dominant 49-3 win at Enox and Modesto. Los Gatos 1-0, 45-14 win versus SoCal. Last few years, Los Gatos has dominated this matchup. A couple years ago, I was at it, won a 3-score game. Last year, Los Gatos shuts Liberty out 31-0. A lot of new pieces stepping up for these programs. Los Gatos lost a couple of stars, but they always retool under Mark Curl. That's what they've done in Liberty. Lost Nate Bell to Eastern Washington, but his younger brother, Jackson Bell, stepped up big. Los Gatos, though, favored on the road, minus 16.5.
I agree with that 100%. There's a reason why Los Gatos is a ranked team. They have their number next to them on Max Preps because they are really good. They won a very, very, very convincing game against Sokol last week. It wasn't even close. Los Gatos made it look really easy for them. So, I mean, unless Los Gatos really lays an egg this week, I have no reason to pick against them. I have no reason to say that they're not going to be winners in a lot of their games that they play. They have talent everywhere. They clearly want it. They are not messing around this year. And, Liberty's a good program too, but Los Gatos just, man, they are, talk about a program that's on the rise and on the rise hard. Like these guys, like Chris said, they've been dominant, and this year they're really dominant, especially after that game that they had. So yeah, 16-point spread sounds about right for them.
Jack and technology.
My bad. I was muted. That takes you back. That takes you back to the pre-COVID times. I don't know a whole lot about these two teams, but Dylan's logic sounded sound, and I could go kind of in circles with some typical jargon, but I'll say I concur, and that I'm excited to learn more about these squads as we go on. So this is a game. It's a good gambling lesson. I would not bet because I am not as well versed.
Now we've got Monterey Trail hosting St. Francis. Monterey Trail, a great team in Sacramento, consistently top 10 program. 0-1 though, that first loss, can't really knock them, right? It's like losing the San Ramon Valley, losing the Sarah, losing the De La Salle. They lost the opener to Folsom. St. Francis, though, also 0-1, lost to Helix from San Diego, 45-21. St. Francis, though, brings back its quarterback, Aaron Knapp, running back, Kingston Canana. And then Monterey Trail won this game last year, though, 28-7. Monterey Trail at home in Elk Grove, favored. Closer one that we're projecting this year, Monterey Trail favored by 2.5.
Man, that game is, I don't agree with that because Helix is such a good program that it's really hard to, and St. Francis is great too. It's really hard to compare Helix and St. Francis. Like it's different. It's a different animal. That those SoCal teams are different beasts out there. And St. Francis is just, they're really good. I think St. Francis is not only going to cover the spread, I actually think that they're going to win this game. Monterey Trail is great. Don't get me wrong. But St. Francis is St. Francis. The last couple seasons and the last few years, they have been a school that athletically has just been on the rise, and in football especially. I mean, they lost to Helix, but it was encouraging in the sense where they didn't look bad. Helix is just that good of a team. So they're going to come out. They're going to be a team on a mission. They're going to want blood. They're not going to want mercy. St. Francis is covering, and I think they're going to win. And I actually think I'm going to make a prediction here. St. Francis -6.
I'll say I also think St. Francis covers this. I know that they are a program that prides itself on physical football. And a spread like that, when it's so close, it really becomes almost like a money line, like a pick 'em, right? Who's going to win? Because it's rare that a football team will win by 1 or 2 points. Anyway, I think St. Francis not only covers this, but gets the win. I don't know if they cover Dylan's alternate line, although that is looking tasty and intriguing. But I think St. Francis comes away with a win, and Monterey Trail is the expectations for them become adjusted a little bit.
This next one is literally a money line pick. Sacred Heart Prep against Sacred Heart Cathedral. Both teams 0-1, but Sacred Heart Prep lost to Reardon in week 1, and Cathedral lost to Pittsburgh. Last year, Sacred Heart Cathedral won a 1-point game, 13-12. This year, it's in Atherton at Sacred Heart Prep, a Saturday afternoon game. Even.
I'm surprised it's even. I thought you'd have Sacred Heart Prep. Maybe that's why you balked a little bit earlier in the show when I said I think you'd agree that Prep is a better team, because I did not think you'd have to pick them. I'd have Prep is 3 or 4 point favorites. Not that I think that's necessarily what's going to happen, but I think in saying that, I have to say I would pick Sacred Heart Prep as much as I do believe in what they're doing at Cathedral. I think Sacred Heart Prep wins this by a score and a half, in the range of a field goal to a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, to be honest, like Jack said before, I don't know much about these two teams in terms of what they do on the field. But, from what I've heard in the past, Prep's been more of the dynamic team in games like this. It's, especially in even games, it's whoever can really, have that one big play. So, I mean, this game could go either way, like the money line literally says. But I mean, like Jack said, I think Sacred Heart Prep, I have a gut feeling that Sacred Heart Prep is going to be the team that makes that one big play to get them the win. So I'm going to have to say Sacred Heart Prep's going to win. It's going to be a close game, but I can see them pulling it out.
We got 3 massive games to finish this off. This one, probably the game of the weekend in California on Saturday afternoon, a heavyweight fight as Jack is imitating there. Sarah at home against De La Salle, the two powerhouses. De La Salle, the Alabama, as Jack pretty much referred to, spot on, and Sarah being the Georgia coming up. Sarah last year won this matchup on ESPN. This time it's in San Mateo. The line, Sarah minus 2.5.
Give me De La Salle, not only to cover, but to win the ball game. I think the Spartans come back and wrestle back a little bit. Yeah, obviously, they can't take it all back in this game, but wrestle back a little bit of that NorCal crown and make people think twice about anointing Sarah the incumbent and unchallenged NorCal champs.
I can't see De La Salle going 0-2. I just can't. As good of a team as Sarah is, De La Salle is a good team too. They know how to bounce back from a win. They've done it they obviously had that streak of 150 something games without losing a game, so they didn't have to worry about a bounce back, but they know how to do it. They're De La Salle. They're the Spartans. I mean, Spartan up. I think that, I'm not, both teams are great. Like I said, this is going to be probably the best game I'm going to see all season. I'm really excited for it. But De La Salle, they just got such a good team, such a good, they're built for a bounce back win. They're going to cover. I think it's going to be a -3. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be maybe a -3 for De La Salle, but I think De La Salle is going to cover this game. They're going to play angry. They're not going to want to go into. They're going to win this game.
We saw some cracks in the armor of Sarah down the stretch in their opener. So it's not like they're bulletproof.
It looks like De La Salle isn't either, though, boys. I think you're both a little nuts, and I'm going to tell you why in a couple minutes when we finish this thing off with. But St. Vincent de Paul, Jack's game on Saturday, hosting Oakland Tech. St. Vincent de Paul, just a small school power under Trent Herzog. They are pumping out kids to college left and right. It's such a small school. Hosting Oakland Tech. Last year, St. Vincent de Paul won 29-12. Also coming off a season opening rout of D'Anzo, running clock came on 58-20. Oakland Tech season opener, graduated a couple of kids to D1 football. Omar Staples at Stanford. Anthony Alonso was also playing D1 football. The spread, St. Vincent de Paul, minus 15.5.
Oh, I'm not gonna jeopardize my standing in the 5th quarter in my first trip to Petaluma on game day. So I'm gonna take St. Vincent de Paul to cover this. They got weapons everywhere. They play a really quick style of football. They're really well coached and well disciplined. I think their weapons, be it Jackson Davis, be it all over the field to get it done. I think they win by 20 or so points. Not a running clock situation, but a more similar score to last year's game than not.
Yeah. Don't have a lot to say on this game because, Jack pretty much nailed everything. And I'm also like, this is more his not knowledgeable teams here, but yeah, Trent Herzog's really has righted the ship at that program. So St. Vincent de Paul, they're going to be, it's going to be a tough game. Oakland Tech, all the Oakland schools play tough, but yeah, I think St. Vincent de Paul is going to come out on top. I do think it's going to be 15.5 points. I agree with that spread.
And Windsor against Escalon, Friday night game out there in Windsor. Two pretty much powers, you could say now. Windsor coming off a couple of great seasons. They bring back nearly everybody and out of the 3-star transfer. Ananias Walker moved over from Rancho Cotati. He's teaming up with Hayden Anderson at 3-star, defending MVP. Justin Anderson's a dynamic quarterback, top running backs back. But Escalon, defending state champs, 2-0, won some close games. And last year, Escalon won this game in the Valley, 49-35. This time, though, Windsor is favored. The line, -1.5.
Yep. That
I
sounds
take
about right.
that. I take Windsor to win the ball game. I think they win it by 5 to 7 points. It's a touchdown difference. They get some revenge from last year. And like you said, Chris, they bring almost everybody back and they added. So Windsor's a better team. I think they're taking a little personal. They want to give Escalon some payback. I think they do win by 6.
Yeah, there's not really a lot to be said here. I mean, two great teams. It's hard to, pick against the state champs, but you got Hayden Anderson teaming up with Ananias Walker. Like, there's really not much left you can say. Windsor basically added a free agent that they needed. So they have a team that is telling people, like, we are not taking this here lightly. We want to win games. And, this game was, not in Windsor's favor last season, but this year I think they're going to come back and they're going to revenge. Probably not going to be that close of a game, 1.5. Like I see Jack, it's probably going to be about a touchdown difference, but Windsor is not messing around this season. They are ready to go and they're going to come out firing. And I think they're going to make a statement win this week.
Now it's time for our hot takes of the week before we wrap this podcast up. You guys kind of riled me up with that De La Salle Sarah stuff. So I'm going to start this off. You're both nuts. Sarah's beating De La Salle by 2 scores. Sarah brings back more. Their defense is loaded. Jabari Mann, Joseph Bay, Danny Niu. They're going to make a lot of stops. I think it's a 9-10 point game. I'm not saying a blowout, but I think Sarah wins by a couple of scores in this game. And I think there's a late score to really seal it there and get that win. And Sarah cements itself still as the class of NorCal. And Patrick Walsh is going to have another trick play that works. He's always got something crazy up his sleeve. He's going to run that Raider offense, put Jabari Mann at quarterback too, and just make things weird. And that's Sarah's going to win this game by 2 scores.
Yeah, well, I got one. I'm going to go back to Campo a little bit just because that win against Vanden really set the tone for their season. I think they're going to be they're going to go undefeated in the preseason. I think so. Coach Macy, you can't pick against them. They always give themselves a hard preseason before league. They're playing an Amador team that is hungry. But Campo, just every single year, every game, they find a way to win. They're going to go undefeated in preseason, and they're going to become a team that, even though they're playing D1 this year, they're going to be back in the conversation of, can they win NCS and D1? That's what I think. That's the ultimate take I think that's going to happen this year for Campo.
I'm hesitant to really put this out on to the, into the universe. But not only do I think Ocalanis covers, I think Ocalanis just gets an upset win. I think they get to 500. They take down San Ramon Valley, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they get the win. It's in Lafayette. It's going to be a great atmosphere. They're desperate for a W. So not, I wouldn't bet my house on this, but I just have a funny feeling that Ocalanis evens their record and kind of shocks San Ramon Valley a little bit.
Any thoughts on that, Dylan?
It's hard to say, but I do think that that's going to be a little bit tough. Unless people can stop Baker, I don't think anyone can beat San Ramon. Like, it's every team starts with the quarterback. It's the most important position, not only on the field of football, but arguably in sports. And Luke is one of the best quarterbacks in the area.
True.
Like we've been saying.
I'm not contesting that.
I'm just saying, like, it's hard.
This is the hot take period.
Oh no,
I
know.
With a bunch of
he asked for the thoughts. He asked for the thoughts, So, I mean, you're not wrong.
Don't ask me to defend this with a thesis. I feel it in my bad knee.
Here you go. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, Luke is he's unstoppable right now. I mean, unless you can stop him, you're really not stopping that team as a whole. Like, you have him and Marco Jones just dominating the team. It's going to be hard to stop him on that.
Well, on that note, we're going to end this. I'm sure we've got some bulletin board material in De La Salle's locker room and Sarah's and San Ramon Valley's and everyone else. So anyway, thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate Dylan and Jack for hopping aboard, not just this podcast, but West Coast Preps and NorCal High School Sports. We'll see you all again soon. Be sure to follow our coverage on Twitter at West Coast Preps _ in Sacramento. It's WCP Sacramento, and then westcoastpreps.com. But we'll be back with you guys on Friday evening live on the Twitter Spaces. And if you can't listen to that live, it's okay. We have that recorded. That'll go up on our podcast network and YouTube for people that miss it.
Yep.
Sweet. See you guys. Let's play some
See you
football.
guys. Let's go.